Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Von Manor, where Roger and I have returned for another video about movies. Normally, of course, Roger and I talk about books, but today we're talking about movies. I've done a couple of these movie videos, and I'm doing this one because Grammaticus over at his fantastic channel and Steve Donoghue over at his epic channel are both putting out movie videos today about this very subject, which would be the top 10 sword and sorcery films of all time. The top 10 sword and sorcery movies ever made. So, if you know me at all in my dumb channel, you know that my favorite subgenre is sword and sorcery. I love sword and sorcery. Robert E. Howard, Conan the Barbarian, that kind of stuff. I love it. And so, of course, I have an opinion on this subject of sword and sorcery movies. And if you know anything about sword and sorcery movies, you know that most of them are pretty bad. They have a tendency to be pretty awful. But not these films that I'm going to be talking about today. No, they're all masterpieces. Every one a masterpiece. I swear. They're all great. They've received multiple Academy Awards. You don't think anyone's actually going to look this stuff up, do you? Yeah, me neither. Multiple Academy Awards. All these films have critically acclaimed films. Every one I'm going to be mentioning today. The top 10. I mean, I have to make this video because every time Steve and Grammaticus make a video, they always, whenever they make a video about movies, whenever they make one of these movie lists, they always screw it up. Although I suspect who knows what's going to be on Steve's video? I mean, you could have a Ren and Stimpy cartoon on his video for top 10. Who knows? It could be literally anything. But Grammaticus, at least, I suspect Grammaticus's list will probably have a lot of the same films that I'll be talking about today, because these are clearly the best. Clearly the best films. I'm rambling. Let's get to the list. Okay, this is a top 10 list, going 10 to 1 as we do on these lists. Number 10, the 10th greatest sword and sorcery movie of all time is Hawk the Slayer from 1980, directed by Terry Marcel. Hawk the Slayer. I know those of you who are familiar with Hawk the Slayer and you see this, you're like, what? This isn't number 1? I know. It's shocking that there could be a movie better than Hawk the Slayer. It's pretty hard to believe. So, Hawk the Slayer, of course it's on this top 10 list because it's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece, Hawk the Slayer. If you haven't seen this movie, just turn this video off and go watch it. You'll thank me for the rest of your life. You'll thank me because you're going to be watching this over and over again because it's just that great, Hawk the Slayer. So Hawk the Slayer, a fine story. It's not confusing at all. It makes total sense, everything that happens in this movie. It all seems to take place in one forest. In fact, it all seems to take place in one location in one forest for the most part. Maybe they're just riding around in circles, but it has the greatest magical sword you'll ever see. It's not, but let's pretend it is. It's Hawk the Slayer. It's amazing. The acting in this film is top notch. I mean, except for Hawk, but it does star that guy that is the dad in Lost. Anyway, it's an amazing film. It's Hawk the Slayer. Let's move on, shall we? Number nine, Lady Hawk. It's Lady Hawk from 1985, directed by Richard Donner. This is a true masterpiece, Lady Hawk. I mean, the soundtrack alone is great. The soundtrack is wonderful. You're gonna, as soon as you see this movie, if you haven't seen it before, you're gonna immediately buy the soundtrack and play it like wherever you go, anywhere in your car, and relive the magical moments from Lady Hawk. This is actually a pretty damn good movie, actually. How to make it on this list. This movie is actually pretty good. Lady Hawk from 1981. It is a sword and sorcery film. It's, by the way, the only rules for this list is that the films have to have swords and sorcery in it. That's it. I'm deliberately leaving out Lord of the Rings, by the way. You guys are going to wonder where Lord of the Rings is. I have a hard time putting Lord of the Rings, even the films. They just seem too classy to put on the sword and sorcery list. You know, even the movies are too classy for a sword and sorcery list. Sword and sorcery is too, gritty for that. Anyway, where were we? Oh yeah, we were on Lady Hawk. This movie's amazing. You should watch Lady Hawk. It's great. So that was number 9. Obviously, you should see Lady Hawk. Number 8 is Dragon Slayer from 1981, directed by Matthew Robbins. I doubt any of you remember this movie. Maybe some of you remember this movie. But as far as movies about some person killing a dragon go, this is the best one. It has a really cool dragon. And in fact, that is the thing you're going to remember the most about this movie, is that the dragon is really, really cool. And it's actually a pretty awesome movie. It's not... I'm actually surprised I put this above Hawk the Slayer. I'm rethinking this entire list. How could anything be better than Hawk the Slayer? Anyway, this is probably a more professionally done film than Hawk. I know, shocking. And I actually like this one even more than Lady Hawk. It's cool. It's got a really good dragon in it. Isn't that a good enough reason? It's not the masterpiece that the next movie on the list is. Number 7, Krull from 1983, directed by Peter Yates. Krull. I mean, if you've never seen Krull, again, you're gonna want to run right out and see it. It's great. It has a little Krull blade you throw around. I mean, it's not exactly a sword, but it's got little pointy. It's close enough. It's close enough, and there's magic in it, and it's Liam Neeson's first film. I mean, it's kind of an historic film just for that, just to see Liam Neeson in his first role, and he's fantastic in it, and so is the Cyclops dude. The Cyclops dude is great. It's what? It is great. It's a great film. Krull. Every minute is wonderful. It's wonderful. Krull. You should watch it, and then find the movie novelization and read it, because that's wonderful too. So Krull from 1983. Now this next movie, it's no surprise that this next movie is on here. This is Solomon Kane from 2009. It is the only film from the 2000s on this list. Not too many great sword and sorcery movies from the 2000s that I can think of, but Solomon Kane, of course, this was directed by M.J. Bassett. Brilliant film, Solomon Kane. It's actually really good. It is a Solomon Kane origin story, and the last thing you really need with a character like Solomon Kane is an origin story. But they did a pretty good job with this film. It's close enough to Robert E. Howard's original character, Solomon Kane. It's not exactly the same guy, but close enough, and it's great. James Purfoy, I think that's how you pronounce his name, is great as Solomon Kane. I was really annoyed when this film was released. It wasn't released in the United States, like forever, if it was ever released in the United States. I remember when this movie was coming out, I really wanted to see it, and I had to wait forever to watch it. And I think I saw it for the first time on DVD, was how I saw it. I think the first time. And yeah, you'd think a great film like this would get a worldwide release, but it didn't for whatever reason. It was Solomon Kane. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good movie. Again, the novelization of this is really, really good as well. You should read that book and watch this movie. Number 5, Clash of the Titans from 1981, directed by Desmond Falls? That's what I wrote down. But of course, you're there for the Ray Harryhausen monsters. Clash of the Titans. Now, this is the first one. They made some newer Clash of the Titans movies that were not nearly as good. Although even those terrible movies were kind of entertaining, but this was terrible in a special way. It's Clash of the Titans. It has that stupid owl that is a robot, and it's got all kinds of great stuff in it, and a lot of stop motion monsters from Ray Harryhausen, and the Kraken is released for the first time. It's great. Again, Alan Dean Foster did the novelization to this movie, and that was really good as well. You should hunt down that book and watch the movie. They're both great. Number 4. So this is a movie I've mentioned before. This is Highlander from 1986, directed by Russell Mulcahy. I can't pronounce it this time either. Anyway, Highlander. There can be only one. Now, there is sorcery in this movie, but the magic is a little light. A little light touch on the magic, but lots of swords, man. Everybody's running around with swords. Now, a lot of this does take place in the modern age, which seems strange for a sword and sorcery movie, but hey, let's just go with it. Let's call it a sword and sorcery movie. Why not? It's got swords and magic in it, more or less. And it's awesome. It's completely awesome. It's just as awesome as the last time I talked about it, if not more so. Number 3, Jason and the Argonauts. Jason and the Argonauts from 1963, directed by Don Chaffee. Is it Chaffee? Again, Ray Harryhausen monsters, including that fantastic scene with the skeletons. You know the one I mean. The skeleton scene. That was awesome. And there's the awesome harpy scene as well. And there's that scene where Hercules gets in trouble by the giant bronze monster because he steals that pin. It's a great film. Jason and the Argonauts. This is, of all the movies on this list, this is the movie I've seen the most except for the number 1 film. The number 1 film on this list is probably the movie I've seen the most in my life. But this is pretty damn good. This is pretty damn good. Jason and the Argonauts. It's a classic. It's got everything. Adventure, monsters, magic, of course. It's amazing. One of the best films from the 60s. Definitely the best movie from 1963. There can't be a better movie that came out in 1963 that's better than this. I refuse to believe it. Number 2. What is best in life? Conan the Barbarian from 1982, directed by John Milius and starring Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan. So, of course, I'm a huge Robert E. Howard fan, and I think Conan is Robert E. Howard's greatest creation. And true, the character in this movie is not Conan. The character in this is a very different alternate reality version of Conan, has a completely different background. Seems like kind of a different guy, but this is still a pretty great movie, let's face it. Has that giant snake in it. It has all kinds of the fighting in this movie, the action is great. It's actually a really, really good movie. It's a genuinely good film, Conan the Barbarian. True, I would have liked it if Conan was closer to the Conan from Robert E. Howard's original stories. But you know what? I should be happy that it's just I should just be happy that it's a good movie. And it was pretty huge for us kids when this movie came out. This was a big deal when this film came out. And again, another movie I've seen a gazillion times because, and it also reveals the secret, the riddle of steel. You could find that out in this movie as well. So it's educational film. So what could be, if Conan is not number 1, what could possibly be number 1? So the number 1 movie is a sword and sorcery movie. And it is the film I've probably seen the most in my life. I've probably seen this movie more than any other movie on this list or in any other list I could think of. I've seen this movie more than I've seen Star Wars. I've seen this movie more than I've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark or any other movie. What could it possibly be? It's Excalibur from 1981, directed by John Borman, and it's awesome. This is just frankly awesome. It is a King Arthur movie, And it is the only King Arthur movie that ever needs to be made, because nothing will ever be better than this King Arthur movie. It's amazing. Like I said, I wouldn't have seen this 10,000 times if it wasn't great from beginning to end. There is a wimpy rated PG version out there of this film. Don't watch that wimpy version. Watch the hard R version. Watch that. It's definitely swords, definitely sorcery, and it's just glorious. It's just a glorious film. It's not just the greatest sword and sorcery movie ever made. It could be the greatest movie ever made. I know, it's a shocking revelation. You didn't know that you were going to get the greatest movie ever made on this fantastic list. But there you go. I'm just here to serve you. So go watch all these movies. Go watch this movie. Go watch Hawk the Slayer. You should watch all of these films because, you know, culture and all that. Okay, guys, I will catch you next time.